Pay attention to Nikki Kuhnhausen, 17 years old, sitting at her friend's apartment on Andresen Road in Vancouver, Washington at 5:14 a.m. on June 6, 2019. She has less than 30 minutes left to live because David Bogdanov, a 25-year-old construction worker she met on Snapchat just 2 hours earlier, is about to strangle her with a phone charging cord and dump her body on a remote mountain. On this morning, Nikki just wanted someone to help her find her lost phone. On this morning, David had darker plans. This is the story of how Snapchat messages, Gmail records, and GPS cell tower pings convicted a killer who thought his secret was buried in the woods forever.
She was my baby. She was brave and beautiful, and she trusted people. That trust cost her everything.
Welcome to Last Witness. Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more haunting crime stories that expose how modern technology connects us to both opportunity and danger. The cell tower on Larch Mountain logged David Bogdanov's phone at 6:47 a.m. on June 6, 2019. He was 23 miles from Vancouver, Washington, on a remote logging road where nobody had any reason to be at dawn. His phone stayed there for 41 minutes. Then it pinged the next tower heading back toward the city. 6 months later, a hiker found a human skull 200 feet from where that phone had been standing still. The question isn't whether David Bogdanov killed Nikki Kuhnhausen. It's how a 25-year-old man convinced himself that deleting a Snapchat conversation would erase a murder, and why he never realized that cell towers don't forget, GPS satellites don't lie, and every second his phone was powered on, it was building the case against him. David Bogdanov's fatal mistake wasn't strangling a 17-year-old girl with a phone charger in his car. It was keeping his phone in his pocket while he drove her body up a mountain, threw her down a ravine, and drove back home, believing the entire time that because he deleted her Snapchat messages, nobody would ever connect him to the girl who vanished in the dark. But Snapchat servers kept the messages. Cell towers logged every mile he drove. And when a hiker stumbled onto Nikki's remains on a trail where Bogdanov's phone had been motionless for 41 minutes, the technology told a story he thought he'd erased. This is told from the point of view of that mistake. The belief that deleting evidence from your phone means deleting it from existence. Nikki Kuhnhausen was 17 years old and didn't want to walk home alone at 5 a.m. She'd been hanging out with friends at an apartment in Vancouver, Washington, on the night of June 5, 2019, a Wednesday that bled into Thursday morning. The group had been drinking, playing video games, scrolling TikTok, where Nikki had a small but growing following. Around 3 a.m., Nikki said she needed to leave. Her phone battery was dying. She didn't have money for an Uber. One of her friends offered to walk with her, but Nikki said she'd figure it out. What she figured out was Snapchat. At 3:47 a.m., Nikki sent a message to someone she'd been chatting with earlier that night, a guy she'd met on the street hours before. Someone who'd given her his jacket and a bottle of vodka and told her to hit him up if she needed anything. His name was David Bogdanov. He was 25, worked at his family's construction business, and had spent the last several hours calling adult video stores and texting numbers from escort ads looking for a hookup. Nikki's message was simple: an address, the place where she was staying with friends. At 5:14 a.m., Bogdanov replied, "On my way." At 5:43 a.m., Nikki sent her last Snapchat message to a friend. It was a car emoji. That was the last time anyone who loved Nikki Kuhnhausen heard from her. But that's not when she died. She had almost an hour left. David Bogdanov had been drinking all night. He'd been out with his brothers, bar hopping in downtown Vancouver, and at some point, around 3 a.m., he claimed he spotted a young woman alone on Main Street. He said he walked over to check if she was okay. That woman was Nikki. According to Bogdanov's later testimony, he gave her his coat because she was cold. He gave her a bottle of vodka because she asked for it. They talked. She told him her name. He told her his. They exchanged Snapchat handles. Then they parted ways. 2 hours later, she texted him an address. He drove over and picked her up. Bogdanov later told police this was an act of kindness, just helping a girl get home safely. But his phone records told a different story. Between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m., while he was supposedly just helping Nikki find her phone, Bogdanov made multiple calls to adult entertainment businesses and texted several numbers from online escort ads. He wasn't looking for someone to help. He was looking for someone to have sex with. And when Nikki got into his car at 5:43 a.m., she had no idea that in less than an hour, she'd be dead. But here's what makes investigators certain this wasn't a random act of violence. It's what Bogdanov did immediately after he killed her. At 6:04 a.m., David Bogdanov's phone pinged a cell tower near Highway 14, heading east out of Vancouver toward the Columbia River Gorge. At 6:22 a.m., it pinged another tower near Washougal, 15 miles east. At 6:47 a.m., it pinged a tower on Larch Mountain, a remote, heavily wooded area 23 miles from Vancouver, accessible only by a winding 2-lane road that dead ends at a trailhead used by hikers and beargrass foragers. Bogdanov's phone stayed in that location for 41 minutes. It didn't move. It didn't call anyone. It didn't text. It just sat there, 200 feet from a logging trail, while David Bogdanov dragged Nikki Kuhnhausen's body down a ravine and covered it with brush and branches. At 7:28 a.m., the phone started moving again. It pinged towers heading back west toward Vancouver. By 8:15 a.m., Bogdanov was back in the city. He went to work at his family's construction shop in Portland. He worked a full day. He went home that night. He deleted his Snapchat conversation with Nikki, and he thought that was the end of it. But cell towers don't delete. GPS satellites don't forget. And when Vancouver Police Detective Jensen reviewed Bogdanov's phone records 6 months later, those 41 minutes on Larch Mountain became the single most damning piece of evidence in the case. Because on December 7, 2019, 6 months after Nikki disappeared, a hiker collecting beargrass on Larch Mountain found a human skull 200 feet from where Bogdanov's phone had been standing still. When Nikki didn't come home on June 6th, her mother Lisa Woods knew immediately something was wrong. Nikki was a teenager who stayed out late sometimes, but she always checked in, she always texted, she always let her mom know she was safe. By June 7th, Lisa had filed a missing persons report. By June 10th, Vancouver police had opened an investigation. Nikki's friends told detectives about the last night they'd seen her, how she'd left the apartment around 5 a.m. to meet someone she'd been messaging on Snapchat. They didn't know who. Nikki hadn't said, but Snapchat knew. On June 26th, detectives obtained an emergency search warrant for Nikki's Snapchat account. What they found was a digital breadcrumb trail leading straight to David Bogdanov. The messages showed initial contact around 3 a.m. on Main Street. Nikki sending her address at 3:47 a.m. Bogdanov replying, "On my way" at 5:14. The conversation ending at 5:43 a.m. Detectives immediately obtained a search warrant for Bogdanov's Snapchat account. His messages corroborated the timeline. He'd been with Nikki, he'd picked her up, and then nothing. The conversation just stopped. On June 28th, detectives tried to contact Bogdanov at his brother's house. His brother, Artur, said he didn't know where David was and had never met anyone named Nikki. David Bogdanov had vanished. For 3 months, detectives couldn't find him. He didn't respond to calls. He didn't answer messages. His family claimed they didn't know where he was. But on September 12, 2019, Bogdanov finally responded to a Snapchat message from Detective Jensen. He agreed to an interview. On October 2nd, 2019, David Bogdanov walked into the Vancouver Police Department and sat down with Detective Jensen for a recorded interview. He was calm, cooperative. He said he wanted to help. And then he lied about everything. Bogdanov told Detective Jensen that he'd met Nikki on Main Street around 3 a.m., given her his coat and vodka, and exchanged Snapchat info. He said they agreed to meet up later, and his brother Stanislav picked them up in a van and drove to his other brother Artur's house. He said they were standing outside Artur's house when Nikki told him something that made him uncomfortable. She told him she was transgender. Bogdanov said the revelation left him shocked, uncomfortable, and really, really disturbed. He said he asked her to get out of the van. He said she walked away on foot. He said he never saw her again. Detective Jensen asked Bogdanov if he'd driven anywhere that morning after Nikki left. Bogdanov said no. He said he'd gone to work at his family's construction shop in Portland shortly after. Jensen thanked him for his time and let him leave. But here's the problem with Bogdanov's story. Cell phone records don't lie. On July 31st, 2019, months before Bogdanov's interview, Vancouver police had obtained a search warrant for his cell phone records. Those records showed that Bogdanov's story about Nikki walking away on foot was a lie. The records showed his phone at the address Nikki had sent him at 5:43 a.m., his phone traveling east on Highway 14 at 6:04 a.m., his phone near Washougal at 6:22 a.m., his phone on Larch Mountain at 6:47 a.m., where it stayed motionless for 41 minutes, his phone traveling back toward Vancouver at 7:28 a.m. There was no stop at Artur's house. There was no conversation outside a van. There was no moment where Nikki walked away on foot. There was only a drive to a remote mountain where Bogdanov's phone stood still for 41 minutes and where 6 months later, a hiker would find Nikki's body. But detectives still didn't have a body. They had Snapchat messages, they had cell tower pings, they had a suspicious timeline. They needed Nikki, the hiker. On December 7th, 2019, a hiker collecting bear grass on Larch Mountain noticed something white partially buried in leaves about 15 feet off the main trail. At first, he thought it was a rock. Then he got closer. It was a human skull. The hiker called 911. Clark County Sheriff's Office Detective Joe Swenson arrived within the hour. The scene was grim. The skull was weathered, partially decomposed. Scattered nearby were other remains, bones, clothing, personal items. Detective Swenson began photographing everything: a jacket, rings, hair extensions, a phone charging cord with hair tangled in a knot. And then Swenson did something that would crack the case wide open. He compared the evidence photos to Nikki Kuhnhausen's social media accounts. The rings matched photos Nikki had posted on Instagram. The jacket matched a TikTok video. The hair extensions matched her profile pictures. This was Nikki. The medical examiner later determined cause of death: strangulation. The phone charging cord found at the scene had been used as a ligature. Nikki had been strangled to death, then dumped down the ravine. And when Detective Swenson mapped the exact location of the remains and compared it to the cell tower data from June 6th, he found something undeniable. Nikki's body was 200 feet from where David Bogdanov's phone had been standing still for 41 minutes. On December 16th, 2019, Detective Jensen called David Bogdanov and asked him to come in for a second interview. This time, Jensen didn't ask questions. He presented evidence. He showed Bogdanov the cell tower records. He showed him the timeline. He showed him the map. "Your phone was on Larch Mountain the morning Nikki disappeared," Jensen said, "for 41 minutes. And that's exactly where we found her body." Bogdanov's face went pale. He was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and malicious harassment, a hate crime. David Bogdanov's trial began in August 2021. Prosecutors argued that Bogdanov killed Nikki in a transphobic rage after discovering she was transgender. The evidence was overwhelming. Snapchat messages showed Bogdanov picking Nikki up at 5:43 a.m. Cell tower data placed Bogdanov's phone on Larch Mountain for 41 minutes at the exact location where Nikki's body was found. Physical evidence. The phone charging cord used to strangle Nikki was consistent with cords found in Bogdanov's vehicle. Timeline. Bogdanov had no alibi for the 41 minutes his phone was on Larch Mountain. Motive. Bogdanov had spent hours that night calling adult entertainment businesses and escort ads, looking for a sexual encounter. When he discovered Nikki was transgender, prosecutors argued he flew into a rage. But Bogdanov had a different story. The self-defense claim. On August 24th, 2021, David Bogdanov took the stand in his own defense. He admitted he killed Nikki, but he claimed it was self-defense. Bogdanov testified that after picking Nikki up, they drove around talking. He said Nikki was smoking something out of a pipe, presumably drugs. He said she asked him to join her in the back seat. Before he did, he said, he wedged the gun he always carried between the driver's seat and center console for safety. Bogdanov testified that while they were in the back seat, Nikki revealed she was transgender. He said it made him uncomfortable, so he asked her to get back in the front seat. Then, he claimed, Nikki reached for his gun. "I panicked," Bogdanov said. "I grabbed the phone charger and I didn't mean to kill her." He said he strangled her in self-defense to stop her from getting the gun. He said he panicked when he realized she was dead. He said he drove to Larch Mountain and dumped her body because he didn't know what else to do. They pointed out that Bogdanov never called 911, never reported a self-defense incident, never told anyone what happened. Instead, he deleted the Snapchat messages. He lied to police for months. He only admitted to being with Nikki after cell tower data placed him at the crime scene. If this was self-defense, prosecutor Colin Hayes asked, why did you spend 6 months lying about it? Bogdanov had no answer. The verdict. On August 27, 2021, after hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder. Guilty of malicious harassment, hate crime. David Bogdanov showed no emotion. Nikki's mother, Lisa Woods, collapsed in tears. On October 15, 2021, Bogdanov was sentenced to the maximum, 19.5 years in prison. At sentencing, Lisa Woods addressed Bogdanov directly. You took my daughter from me because of who she was. You thought you could erase her. But Nikki is not erased. She's here, and she always will be. The law that bears her name. Nikki Kuhnhausen's murder inspired Washington State to pass Nikki's Law in 2020 legislation that bans the use of the gay panic or trans panic defense in criminal trials. Under this law, defendants can no longer claim that discovering a victim's sexual orientation or gender identity justifies violence. Bogdanov tried to use that defense. It didn't work. Nikki's case became a landmark, one of the few times a transgender murder victim received full prosecution, a guilty verdict, and maximum sentencing. According to transgender advocacy groups, only about 30% of transgender murder cases result in arrest and prosecution. Nikki's case was different because of technology, the technology that testified. The David Bogdanov case demonstrates how digital forensics have made it nearly impossible to commit a perfect murder in the smartphone era. Snapchat messages. Even though Bogdanov deleted his conversation with Nikki, Snapchat servers retained the messages, providing a complete timeline of their interaction. Cell tower data. Every time Bogdanov's phone connected to a tower, it left a digital fingerprint showing his location. Those fingerprints placed him at the exact spot where Nikki's body was found. GPS metadata. Though not explicitly used in trial, modern phones constantly log GPS coordinates, creating a permanent map of everywhere you've been. Timeline correlation. By combining Snapchat timestamps, cell tower pings, and physical evidence, investigators built an unshakable timeline that destroyed Bogdanov's alibi. Bogdanov believed deleting the Snapchat conversation would erase the evidence. He didn't understand that digital evidence doesn't live on your phone, it lives on servers, cell towers, and satellites you can't reach. David Bogdanov is currently serving his sentence at Coyote Ridge Correction Center in Washington State. He'll be eligible for parole in 2037. Nikki Kuhnhausen's remains were cremated. Her ashes were scattered at a private ceremony attended by her mother, siblings, and close friends. Nikki's TikTok account remains active, frozen in time with videos of a 17-year-old girl dancing, laughing, living her life. Her final post was made the day before she disappeared. The cell tower on Larch Mountain still stands, logging every phone that passes through its range, including the phone that logged 1 minute in one spot on June 6, 2019, while a 25-year-old man disposed of a body 200 feet away. On the morning of June 6, 2019, Nikki Kuhnhausen got into a car with a stranger she'd met on Snapchat, believing he was just giving her a ride. She was 17 years old. She was tired. She wanted to go home. David Bogdanov strangled her with a phone charger, drove her body to a remote mountain, and threw her down a ravine. Then he went to work, came home, and deleted the Snapchat messages, convinced he'd erased the only evidence connecting him to her. But he forgot that his phone had been recording everything, every tower ping, every GPS coordinate, every second he stood on that mountain disposing of her body. This is Nikki's story. This is Nikki's justice. This is what happens when a killer forgets that in the digital age, your phone is always the last witness, and it never deletes the truth.